So, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us, Roland. So I'm going to start. I just want to ask you to explain a little bit about Infiniti's plans for electrification in the coming 3 years.
Yeah. So first of all, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you. As just mentioned, we have announced about 3 months ago quite ambitious plans for China. China is growing over proportionally, and within that growth, we see an overproportional growth in itself of electric vehicles. So consequently, tapping into the potential, we have announced a plan that by 2021, or from 2021 onwards, all our vehicles, all Infinitis newly launched, will be electrified, either hybrid electric or pure battery electric cars. And all these vehicles will be built in China for the Chinese market.
So how is Infiniti going to ensure its goal of tripling sales within 5 years?
That's part of it. If you look at the market, it's growing over proportionally. Just a few numbers in terms of electrification. Until May this year, the last numbers for June we're still waiting for, but until May, the electric cars in China grew by 140%, which is an overproportionate growth. We expect in the whole market to be at 1 million units by the end of the year for electric vehicles. So this is quite a significant growth, and this will continue. Second, when we look forward and we look at what is the customer sentiment and also what do customers want, they definitely would like to have zero emission and electric vehicles going forward. So putting this together, the growth that we see, the customer sentiment in the market, and the potential that China has, we have taken a conscious decision to change all our platforms, everything into electrified vehicles, and localize this platform in China. And that's the way forward, and that's how we're going to triple also our sales.
But what about the competition? Because obviously we're seeing a lot of new entrants to the market. So how does Infiniti stack up?
Well, first of all, competition always is good because it makes you stronger. A good competition and a fair competition will always make sure management is on their toes and that you develop your technologies and that you develop your organization to be competitive yourself. So what we see in the market is exactly what I've just outlined. Everybody watches the market, and there have been many, many announcements within the competitor landscape of electrifying their own platforms and their own vehicles, and many go in the similar direction that we are going. So we are part of what is happening at the moment in China, in the market. But of course, we try to be a little bit faster and make our mark in the segment.
But how can Infiniti really stand out? Like, what is the unique selling point, if you will?
So one of them, and you've seen this already with today's vehicle, is that we have a very powerful and strong design language that was developed over time, and that goes hand in hand with the impression of the car, with the power that this car has today and that these cars will have tomorrow. Second, we will make sure the design of the car and the size and the package of the car is done with the Chinese customer in mind, which means, for example, a large sedan, a large limousine will be designed for passengers in the back seat. So we call it driver-centric but passenger-minded. And that's the philosophy we are giving to our engineers and our designers to design these vehicles and bring them to the market. And there we have a few things that are specifically for the Chinese market, and we believe it's going to be very successful.
Can you speak a little bit about the challenges for electrification, especially for Infiniti and like broadly in China?
Everything that you develop new obviously is a challenge, but for me, and most probably here in the room, there are many entrepreneurs and startups, a challenge is an opportunity, because a challenge in the business makes you wake up and find a solution and overcome those challenges. So it is an opportunity to become better or tackle the market. So one of the things that we need to ensure is, first of all, we tap into the competence and the potential of our mother company, which is the largest EV manufacturer in the world. Nissan has manufactured more EVs than anybody else in the world today. So we have that competence, we have that capacity. But of course, in a big company, you have the challenge, you have to bring those resources into your own brand, into your own company. Second point, of course, is that when we want to localize, we have to build production, we have to find the right suppliers. In China, it's very important to localize the battery. So this is what we're doing at the moment. So these are the challenges in terms of the framework. And then quite interesting, to install such a change in a big company or in a team like we have it, needs a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, needs a lot of drive. And as we sit here today at RISE, also talking about many startups and many opportunities, you have to make sure that management and everyone that is within the team and the company understands that we sometimes have to challenge our own rules to get faster, to tackle the market the right way and develop these technologies. So that's what we're doing at the moment, and we have installed a few specific processes to ensure that we get this done.
What was the reason for headquartering Infiniti in Hong Kong? Was it to cater to the Chinese market? Or?
There are many, many reasons. First of all, Hong Kong is a great place. And I know that you're from Hong Kong, so I hope you can underline that. But point is, we have a proximity to the Chinese market. And this is quite, I would say, a hotspot for new ideas, for people that join us that will also install this entrepreneurial spirit into our company. Nevertheless, we should not forget that we have a very close link to our engineering department, predominantly in Japan. But we also link globally with all our design centers. We have a design center in Beijing where we design some cars, and some of the future cars will come from ideas from colleagues that are working in this design center. So we use this kind of as a hub, but not necessarily as the only place where we do business. We are globally linked, and we use our headquarters in Japan, especially the engineering, as the hub to design these cars.
Can you tell us a little bit about the differences between the China green car market and that of the US?
Yes. Well, first of all, China is developing much faster. We see, as mentioned, over-proportional growth. Also, in many aspects, Chinese customers have, I would say, leapfrogged some of the developments. If you look at usage of mobile phones, in China, it's not only that everyone is using the mobile phone, but the mobile phone is basically your mobile device for everything. And to some extent, the customer has leapfrogged the laptop. So going forward, if we know all these developments, we have to make sure that when we design a car, we have these things in mind. And the expectation of a customer in China, of course, is different coming from that experience. And therefore, connectivity is one of the main topics that we have to work on. Connectivity is a prerequisite for autonomous drive functions. We will have that, already have that in the car, but we will have this more. And connectivity enables the user of the car, be it the driver or the passenger, to have many other functions on top of just going from A to B or from experiencing the drive itself. And to some extent, these developments and these technologies will take over, in terms of importance, take over the development process much more than they were in the past. In the past, you were talking about drivetrains, switch, for example, from internal combustion engines into electrification and so on. In the future, you will have connectivity, infotainment, services, everything that comes with connectivity, and of course autonomous drive functions in the vehicle, which in terms of importance might be even more important than the car itself.
So for self-driving vehicles, for instance, how does this fit into Infiniti's plans with electrification?
Well, first of all, if you ask me, I like to drive, okay? So self-driving is great, but I'm a driver. But set that aside, the technologies that we offer already today give more capabilities to current drivers, because the technologies that we have, the sensors that we have, the software that's offered in the car will enable the driver to be more capable in certain situations of the traffic. Now, if you want to take off the hands of the wheel, it should be your choice. It should be your choice as an owner or as a driver to decide, do you really want to drive or you want to be driven? And that step as a brand is a brand unique decision. And for Infiniti to take a decision to have a driverless car is not our priority. Our priority is to offer cars that give you the option to drive with autonomous drive functions, make the drive more pleasure, more capable, or the driver more capable, and you choose. But to take away the driver as a brand means that you are offering a different concept of vehicle. And that concept of vehicle, we believe, for the Infiniti brand, is a way that we will not go. We will go for a driver-centric car, but we have those functions available. And if the driver wants to drive hands off, then he can drive hands off. But it's your choice.
What is the main motivating factor for electrification?
Well, many. First of all, is very clear. We have the zero emission, and we have the need to provide zero emission transport, especially in urban areas. So that's very clear. Also, when you look at the urban situation in terms of, and this is just a very technical issue, but in terms of stop and go, a electric vehicle offers itself much better for stop and go traffic, for dense traffic situations, because an internal combustion engine is either always running or you have to switch it on again. Yeah. An EV is either off or on. So all these, I would say, infrastructure developments lend itself to an EV for the time being. Now, going forward, we have to make sure also there's sufficient infrastructure for loading, for charging the car, and also the acceptance of a certain range that you offer within the vehicle, how far you can go before you charge the car, is in each market something you have to work on. But very clearly the direction will be into EVs or EV driving, especially because of the emission, the regulatory environment, and the infrastructure.
But how clean is it really if the electricity is ultimately still powered by coal, especially in China?
Well, if you drive electric, then of course you have no emissions on the car. Now, I know what you're getting at, because in somewhere the electricity is produced somewhere else, but at least where you drive, there is no emission or very little emission. The other topic is, of course, working with, and this is not a car maker topic, but a topic within the infrastructure or the country itself, to have energy that is produced by renewable energies such as wind and solar and water, which is something, of course, that's developing and will be developing further, especially with the EVs coming to the markets. So that's our expectation.
Okay. I wanted to ask you more about Infiniti Lab and the work that you guys are doing there. So could you explain to everybody a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so that's something that's very dear to my heart, because we started about 2.5 years ago something that's called Infiniti Lab. It's actually an accelerator program for startups that we have many of them here today. And what we do is we invite young startups, or we invite people with new ideas. We select them in a selection process in terms of what they have to offer, technology or business ideas. And then we invite them to Hong Kong for 3 months, and we give them advice, we coach them, and we make sure that they develop their idea into something that is a viable business case. Then we would invite investors, normal investor pitch, and with that, we hope that these startups are actually developing into something that can be very successful in the future. Now, that's one side, and that's an accelerator program that many of you most probably know. But what is so dear to my heart is that we use this opportunity with our own management, who's coaching those startups, to change their mindset. Because if you are embedded into a big organization, into a big company, then there's a high probability that good ideas or new creative ideas will be absorbed by an administrative process, which is natural and actually to some extent necessary. But on the other side, you want to produce new ideas, such as I just explained, with developing a new platform, with some new ideas and so on. So I want my management to act as an entrepreneur. I want to become, as Infiniti, a startup for their own rights. But it needs a certain push, it needs a certain mindset, and therefore we're using those Infiniti Labs kind of as an incubator for our own management to become more entrepreneurial. And simply saying, and those who work in big companies know this, if a startup can pitch for $1 million contract in 5 minutes with 5 charts, how many charts have you produced today and how many $1 million decisions have you taken? And that's the question I'm asking my management with the experience of the Infiniti Lab. So it has 2 functions, or it has 2 roles, and that's working quite nicely for us.
Can you give us some examples of startups that have been successful under the program?
Yeah, we have one startup for mobility services that is in Toronto at the moment, or in Canada, that we work very closely together. And we actually have a pilot on mobility service. We have a few other startups, one from Singapore, also on mobility services that we work quite closely together. And there were a few others that we incubated and have now developed their own company and providing services for dealers, for customer data management for dealers, and so on and so forth. There's a host of startups that we groomed and they became successful, or we have a pilot with them right now. And if I may, while we're here at RISE, we will have our next accelerator starting in September and October. So we're open for applications. We usually receive roughly 140, 150 applications from all over the world. We will select them and then we will invite them and also work with them to see what we can do with the ideas, with your ideas, and hopefully make a business out of it.
What kind of criteria, though, are you looking for specifically?
I tell you, we have it is not necessarily connected to cars. We have a selection criteria, of course, of the quality of what we see behind that idea. But if I may say, we had even a city tree which is cleaning the air as one of the startups, a German company that actually then developed this into a business going forward. And we had one of the examples here in Hong Kong. So it really doesn't matter from which area. It just has to have a quality of business, and we would have to see the potential. We have a normal selection process together with our partner Nest, and they help us with running the accelerator, and it was very successful so far.
I think we're just about out of time, so do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I mean, again, this is a great opportunity, and I just, unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to talk to some people, but I just walked in, and I can encourage everyone to work on their ideas. Don't give up. If you have this entrepreneurial spirit within you, and you have a great idea for business, go for it. Because if you are that kind of person that goes for it, everyone else, be it someone investor, or some investor that wants to invest in you, or a customer, you will feel it. You will feel that spirit, and that will make you successful. It doesn't matter what idea it is. And that's a recommendation that I have, because we've been working like this at Infiniti. I've seen it with many others, and I can only encourage you to do so. And I'm very happy to see many people that are working in this direction.
Great. Thanks very much for your time, Roland.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.